Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and this is the podcast where we're going to talk about professional wrestling for a couple of hours right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes or on your favorite podcast application, wherever you are listening to me right now. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just like I would appreciate a link on this video if you're watching it on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. All these things help out a great deal. They really do. They really do, especially when we've got so much stuff to talk about here. I really want the podcast to grow because I feel like more and more people should be listening to my choice takes, just like you're doing right now. I think this D-list podcaster needs to grow his A-plus audience, and you can be a big factor in that. Because look, we've got some interesting topics to talk about tonight. I'm going to give you my thoughts about, look, it's the week 3 recap, I should say, and really the final weekly recap of the G1 Climax. And boy, I've got some thoughts about that. We're going to be talking about the ESPN deal that WWE settled with them. Of course, we're going to be talking about, John Cena and Triple H and Brock Lesnar and much, much more. We've got a packed show. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Let's get right to it. Let's kick this off. Let's get it started. The big news this week was ESPN and WWE entering a rights agreement for WWE PLEs. Oh, you think a PLE is a premium live event? No, it's a Paul Levesque entertainment is what it is. People always call it pretty lame events. Sure. But in our house here, premium live event, pretty lame event and Paul Levesque entertainment are synonymous. So anyway, this really came out of nowhere on Wednesday, yesterday, as I'm recording this on August the 7th. It really came out of nowhere. ESPN WWE reached landmark agreement as ESPN platforms become exclusive U.S. domestic home of all WWE premium live events, including WrestleMania, starting in 2026. I'm reading the press release here. ESPN's direct-to-consumer service stream all WWE premium live events in their entirety, including WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Money in the Bank, and more. So I don't necessarily want to go through the entire press release. I don't want to break it all down, but I do want to break it down, but I don't want to read it. Here's the big notes here. Okay, all of this streaming is going to be on ESPN's, as we mentioned, direct-to-consumer platform. Oh, you mean ESPN Plus, Warren? No. ESPN is going to be launching a brand new service very shortly, right? In the US, of course. This is all US based. They're going to be launching this service, which is going to be like this one-stop shop for all sports streaming events that ESPN will have licensed. So everything that's going on in the that will be going on in the ESPN universe is going to end up on that platform, and they're launching that fairly soon, and they're calling it ESPN. Okay, so it's going to get a little confusing at times when we're going to be talking about all of this, because you're going to have ESPN the company, you're going to have ESPN the network, and you're going to have ESPN the streaming service, not ESPN Plus. ESPN, I know what you're thinking, but it's not ESPN Plus, and it's not going to have another name. They're not calling it ESPN Max or whatever. It's just like ESPN. And all WWE PLEs will stream in their entirety on the service. And there are, as they mentioned, select PLEs that may also air on ESPN linear. So ESPN, the network, the cable network. Which ones? So look, basically what that means is that you will have, on occasion, select some of the PLEs are going to be on cable television, like straight up. No one having to pay nothing. You'll just be able to flip on, well, outside of your cable bill, of course, but just be able to flip on your TV and then you'll watch. Oh yeah, like for instance, WrestleMania, which actually makes a lot of sense. WrestleMania could end up being, viewed on cable TV, which would be bonkers, but this is where we are. And it actually makes a lot of sense because, correct me if I'm wrong, sports fans, but in April, there's really not much going on as far as big sporting events, right? Football season's done. The NBA isn't quite, we're not in finals yet, if I'm not mistaken, or I could be mistaken, but I don't think so. March Madness is out of the way. Maybe the NHL, but I don't think I don't think the NHL is going to make any kind of dent here. If you ask me, WrestleMania in April showing up on cable would actually be beneficial. What a rhyme. What a fucking rhyme I just dropped. WrestleMania in April showing up on cable could be beneficial. Look, I know you're all sitting or standing or whatever you're doing right now, but whatever you're doing, you've stopped. You've stopped doing whatever you're doing. And I know you just stared at your YouTube screen and you're like, "Oh my God, this guy, what lyrical mastery." And I know, I'm even taken aback at how effortless it was. It just came to me. It was inspiration. I was overcome by the three muses at once. So as we mentioned, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Money in the Bank. These are all mentioned by name. Right? These are all mentioned by name in the press release. Could there be others? Could they add Backlash? Could they add Bad Blood? Could they, whatever? Sure, because they did say, not they said, but if I'm not mistaken, it is our boy Nick Khan here, who never gets tired, said that WWE is going to present 10 PLEs a year in this deal. He said this in an interview. This is not covered in the press release, but he did say this in an interview the next day or the same day on the Puck with John Orand. And he said, as this is the quote right here, "These things could always grow, but it's going to start as 10 events, but 12 nights. What? How does that work? Well, because WrestleMania and SummerSlam now clearly are going to be established as being 2-night events. So you get 2 extra nights. So 12 events, but 10 events, but 12 nights. WWE has hosted a similar number of PLEs in recent years. When excluding TV specials or web specials, WWE has announced or held 11 PLEs this year. 12 PLEs took place in 2024. Another note here in this release is that WWE will continue to produce all premium live events, and and ESPN will also be able to stream pre and post event shows. So ESPN on their own, like not unlike the basketball shows and all that, whatever. I don't know. I know what they are. I just can't name them because they don't. It doesn't mean anything to me. Like Inside Baseball, is that still a thing? Is Inside Baseball still a thing? What's the show with Barkley and what's his name? The big guy. I'm drawing complete and utter blanks. This is ridiculous. So, they could produce those on their own, like not necessarily WWE produced pre-shows and whatnot. So, inside the NBA, thank you, Kelly. Thank goodness you're here to, save the day. So essentially, they'll be able to do those types of roundtable discussions, which I really don't understand. Because they're all going to be in kayfabe. I like me a good post show or a good recap, but not when you're in kayfabe, right? I don't know why anyone, and it's the case even right now with the WWE pre-shows and whatnot. I don't know why anyone, sort of slaps their hands together and rubs them together and go, all right, it's 4 p.m. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to see what Sam Roberts and Big E have to say about this upcoming show. What are their thoughts? What are their crispy thoughts here on what's going to come up here? What are their big predictions? This is all scripted. It's it doesn't matter. Getting big previews and stuff like that. It's so dumb. It really is dumb. So, so those are the big portrait, big picture things. Just to give you a little bit of context, in the US right now, Peacock, which is currently the home of WWE, it has its PLE deals. It currently has the deal to hold on to the PLEs until the ESPN deal starts, and I believe it's in March 2026. I think that's when the transfer of power will happen. And this, keep in mind, for those of you who are not, locked within the United States of America, the rest of the world will continue to have all of WWE's programming available on WWE on Netflix. Excuse me. What am I talking about? I'm going nuts here. Netflix is going to continue broadcasting everything. So for the rest of the world, it's still a one-stop shop, and for everyone else, well, then it gets a little more. Then it gets a little more dicey. Price is going up for Peacock. I did see that. I don't know if this is coincidental to try and make up for the loss. We'll keep talking about that. I like the dynamics of Renee, RJ, and Double J. Renee and RJ are fantastic, quite frankly, if we're doing the comparisons with AEW. But I still don't, I can't listen to that stuff. It's so Jeff, who do you think is going to win tonight? Hangman Adam Page or Mox? It's it's just kayfabe analysis. Again, if they, I know they can do this on their own programming, it wouldn't make sense. But, if anyone does a pre-show where we're digging in, we're doing previews, like I sometimes do, and you dig in and you think about the analysis and everything that's been going on and what are the projected, what's the, how did the feud go? How the vibes are? How do we feel about this person's strength and drawing and whatnot? If you start breaking all of that down, then it starts getting interesting. But, kayfabe pre-shows and breakdowns, it's it's not for me. It's definitely not for me, right? Boris, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. They're going to run ads during PLE matches. Oh God, they're going to run ads as much as they can. What are we talking about? That's not even, is that even up for debate? WWE/TKO not having an opportunity to run an ad? Well, let's get real here. Of course they are. It's going to be up and down, and it's going to be so frustrating for everyone watching it. It's going to this is the new norm for world wrestling entertainment. So all in all, that's what we got out of the press release. And was mentioned in the chat earlier, a pretty bare bones type of approach here. It wasn't exactly super exciting, right? Now, we got an article shortly thereafter from the Wall Street Journal that gave us some some extra little insight here, some extra little juicy details. I shouldn't do that into a microphone. I apologize. Disney's ESPN is paying $1.6 billion for U.S. streaming rights to WWE's Paul Levesque events over 5 years, starting in 2026. So that equates to $325 million per year. It's a significant increase over WWE's current 5-year deal with Peacock, which was reportedly worth at $180 million a year, which was a 5-year deal, like we said, so $900 million, right? Which was short of the $1 billion that WWE had said that the deal was worth. Because, WWE, when they do their earnings call, they like to give out figures for entertainment purposes, just like Vince used to say, right? Here's the info for that we got here. Oh wait, no, this is for the bid. This is something else. No, I'm jumping ahead here. So I'm sorry, folks. I'll stay focused. But I jumped ahead here a little bit. I apologize for that. So as we said, also it was confirmed in the article from the Wall Street Journal that the ESPN streaming service would be at $30 a month and would be launching this fall, whatever that means specifically. They said it would be launching this fall, and there would be select events that will be simulcast on ESPN's linear TV. So the article points out that the WWE deal is seen as a major content driver to boost ESPN's direct-to-consumer strategy and attract subscribers at launch. So this, of course, follows, as we mentioned, the deal with Netflix. Just to remind each other, 10 years with Netflix, $5 billion plus for Raw, only Raw, which everyone is saying, TKO, Netflix, the Wall Street Journal saying it's performing well for the platform, even though a lot of us wrestling fans are looking at this and like, these are underwhelming numbers as opposed to what WWE was doing on Fox, on cable. Netflix is happy. Well, good for them. There are connections to be made here with ESPN and TKO because they already have an existing partnership, right? Which is currently valued at $300 million a year. And that deal expires at the end of 2025. And the renewal, is expected to be more expensive. TKO is going to be asking for more money, which will surprise no one. So ESPN right now, what they're doing before launching their new service, they're going on a tear. They're going on a tear to lock down as many deals as possible so that they can have, the most alluring platform possible so that people will subscribe, will give their $30 to it. In the weeks leading up to this, they struck a major deal with the NFL. I don't know if you heard this. They struck a major deal with the NFL to get some content there. But here's the interesting part. The NFL, in return for the games and whatnot and the rights, they were given, I should say, a 10% stake in ESPN. And I believe it's a 10% stake in ESPN, the company, not ESPN, the streaming service, ESPN, the company. And this is kind of wild, if you ask me, where you have, a sports organization network whose job is to cover like sporting organizations right now. This is going to create, to a degree, a certain conflict of interest, but no one cares anymore about conflict of interest, apparently, because how do we expect then ESPN to fairly cover the NFL, especially if there's, turmoil that happens, whatever, how do we expect them to cover the NFL fairly if the NFL owns 10% of the outlet, right? How is that going to affect their news coverage? There's nothing good that's going to come out of this. There's nothing good that comes out of this. So that was an interesting little extra little thing here. WWE has its content has proven effective for streamers in reducing churn and ensuring subscriber loyalty. That's something that they've seen. That was something that was crucial with Peacock's early growth. So that's going to be nonetheless. So that's, I guess, something that ESPN is also banking on for the new streaming service, hoping that lots of people then come in and join, right? And join the service from day one. Now, the stream will cover, like we said, PLEs, all the PLEs, and you might even get them on cable, and then you get all of the other sports as well within the ESPN, under the ESPN banner, everything that they have licenses for, and it's $30 a month, and people are like, oh shit, is like this is going to be an extra $30 to watch WWE? Well, yes and no, it depends, because it was also later revealed that if you had that ESPN was going to be offered to people who had cable packages as well. So you wouldn't have to outright pay for the streaming service if you're already a subscriber to a cable service. They would include that would be bundled within your cable service, of course, as long as you have ESPN, right? If you have ESPN in your cable service, in your cable package, then you'll have ESPN, the streaming service, included in that. But if you don't, if you're a cord cutter, if you're whatever, then you're going to have to shell out the $30. So a lot of people said, oh, well, that's not so bad. And quite honestly, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That doesn't seem so terrible. So I'm not gonna throw it up on screen because it's on the WrestleNomics paywall. So I want to be respectful of that. But I'll read it out here. I'll read it out, at least the bits that interest us. Brandon Thurston did a little digging to discover that it will not be all cable carriers who will automatically get access to WWE PLEs on ESPN's new streaming platform. There will some that will be. Some will be, some will not. Here, let me read the bit of his article here. According to a person familiar with the agreement, only customers of the following providers will be granted access to the PLEs through the ESPN app at no additional cost. Charter, which is Spectrum, DirecTV, Fubo TV, Hulu Live TV, and Verizon Fios. Customers who access ESPN through other major systems not named above, and that includes Comcast Xfinity, YouTube TV, Dish, Sling, Altus, Cogeco, Frontier, and Cable One, will need to subscribe separately to ESPN's new streaming service to access WWE's premium events beginning in 2026. So out the gate, when ESPN Plus launches this fall, they won't even cover it won't even cover all of the cable systems. And I read an article today off of CNBC, basically following up on what Brandon dug up here, that dug a little deeper, talked to people at Disney, ESPN, to say that, well, everyone eventually will get the ESPN bundled into their cable package if they have ESPN, of course, already included in the cable package. So that will be added like down the line, basically saying that they're still negotiating with other carriers They're negotiating with Comcast and Dish, and Sling and so on and so forth, and YouTube TV. They're all negotiating still. So not everyone's going to have access to it from day one, but eventually they say. But that also means that's concordant that they're able to reach agreements in these negotiations. You really get the feeling that this is something that was done really quickly, very fucking last minute, at least for these types of operations, and they're just scrambling to put all the pieces together. It really gives off that vibe, don't you think? It gives me that vibe anyway. That because look, Brandon gave an outline here of how much people this could affect, right? Not having access to ESPN Plus within their cable package. According to our tracking of the paid TV universe, Charter, DirecTV, Fubo TV, Hulu Live TV, and Verizon Fios, which are all the services that will, from day one, have ESPN included, bundled with their cable packages. All of these add up to about 30 million households out of the roughly 65 million pay homes. So a little less than half of cable connected homes in the United States will have access. Well, not will have access, but will have the ESPN app streaming service bundled with their service. That seems like a lot of people that's not going to have it from day one, that they're going to have to shell out to watch WWE. That really, really seems like a lot. So essentially, that's the overall setup right now, where they're ready to go into every home, but like the ESPN streaming service, the direct to consumer service, is going to be ready in the fall, and you can sign up if you want. And if you have a cable package with one of the authorized distributors, cable service providers, then you will be able to get that included for free in your cable package as long as you subscribe to ESPN. That's the most important thing. So those are the highlights of it, right? Again, the rest of the world, all you need is a Netflix account. Thank you very much. Good night. It's as simple as that. That's literally all you need. But now, I've got some other thoughts here. I have some other thoughts here to think. Oh, something that Brandon did bring up here, and I think I'll pull it out right here, is that the ESPN deal will not include the library. Here's the note right here. The new deal with ESPN is for 5 years and doesn't include access to WWE's large archival library, WrestleNomics has learned, though new PLEs will air on ESPN's platform. New PLEs that air on ESPN's platform will be available there for replay. So what that means, right, folks? What that means is the entire library is unsure, completely up in the air. We don't know what's happening with it. ESPN's not picking it up. Now, it could be open to another bidder, right? There could be someone else who'll be like, yeah, I'll host all of this for, whatever amount on my streaming service. I don't know who would. Because listen, as much as it pains me to think that, old episodes of Nitro will no longer be available, that we won't have access to any more World Class, won't have access to Memphis anymore at the tips of our fingers like we've had for the past, better part of a decade at this point. A guy like me is a turbo nerd. I don't like, and I'm not spending eons and eons going after and looking for, I'm not spending hours a day, digging through the library, right? And there's not a lot of us who do go through the library and watch stuff. Ultimately, it's it's a very, very niche thing that demands a lot of uploads and a lot of categorization and metadata, and it's a big fucking deal. It is a really, really big deal to try and get all of that content onto a server to be distributed. It's a lot of work for a little return. So as much as it pains me, I'm not surprised. And I don't think anyone should be surprised. And it'll probably not follow. You will not find, the entire library of Stampede Wrestling on ESPN in the future. Now, maybe they'll stay on Peacock. I mean, they're already all on Peacock, and maybe there's a deal that's set up there. I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But it's extremely sad because longtime listeners will know. I've said this so many times. I've been saying that for years at this point. The history of professional wrestling should not be in the hands of one corporation. Because, and I was saying this back in the day when we were still flying high with the network, the WWE network. I'm gonna say there's gonna come a day where if WWE's priorities pivot, that and they pivot to the point where it's like maintaining this catalog is no longer worth it for us, it's just gonna disappear. And they own essentially every recording of every territory. Look, close to what? 85% easy, if not more. Maybe I'm being a little too conservative. They own everything. They own fucking everything. So it's not as if then, someone can be entrepreneurial and start burning out DVDs and we're back to, and then we have DVDs available we can't do, it's not accessible to any means. WWE owns it all. And that's frustrating because there's a lot of us who saw this coming. And again, it's not a question of this idea of, well, we have to be able to watch this every day, all the time. No, but the history of pro wrestling should be available just easily accessible and available at your fingertips. You should be able to, if you hear about a match, you hear about someone's career and you want to find out more about it, well, you should be able to just log in, and search on the internet and easily get access. And the key word is easily get access to all of the great moments in pro wrestling, all the matches, all the big events, so that you can see them with your own eyes. It's a fucking shame that this is what it's come to. Look, between us all, again, I'm not endorsing this. Not endorsing this in the least. But, if I would say the key word is easily, but if you work a little harder, you can find all of these matches, because they're out there. They're on the internet somewhere, but that requires a little, a little research, a little creativity. You have to put on your eye patch and peg leg and head out to the high seas. You know what I mean? But the key issue, because the thing is, in that scenario that I just described, it's people like me and maybe even like you, the turbo nerds who want to get into this and who need to find something. And we know where to look, and sometimes it's shady, but you find what you need. But the key here was ease of access. Was be able to be arguing with someone who told you, there was never 18,000 people, at the Madison Square Garden, let's say, before, Roman Reigns showed up, and then you can pull up footage of Bruno. Say, there you go. And he can't say, I can't watch it. I can't. I don't have the application to open this weird file you sent me or whatever. Just no. I know you can. Here it is. This is what's frustrating. But again, I'm not surprised. this is the look. It's the problem. It's the problem I've said. It's the problem I've talked about for a while, and I don't know how you fix it. I don't have a solution. And the guys who could be fixing it, in my opinion, could be doing something about it, spend their days arguing on Twitter with randos. So, but let's say we backtrack a little bit. We think about how everything is set up now. The fragmentation of WWE's offer is huge. Like it's split all over the place, right? You've got Raw, like again for the US, right? You got Raw on Netflix. You have SmackDown in USA, right? And that's SmackDown and then SmackDown ends up on Peacock, if I'm not mistaken. And what happens to SmackDown after that? Oh, that's another thing, right? And then you get the pay-per-views on ESPN, and then you have NXT on the CW. And that's part of their strategy. Look, they're trying to do like the NFL, essentially, and they're succeeding. Because this is a massive deal that they got. It's a huge deal. And all of their content is fractured all over the place, but it's a huge deal. They're able to get so much money out of it. Because that's how things go these days. And here's the thing that I wanted to mention earlier, where the on Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez reported that Peacock had made a bid to hang on to WWE on the service, and it was in the neighborhood of $270 million per year. And they turned that down for ESPN. And the way that during the earnings call that TKO had yesterday, they even said out loud, we left a bigger offer on the table to go with ESPN. Why? Because ESPN will create content and will help promote better than whatever the other offer was. And a lot of people seem to think that it might be Netflix. That was the bigger offer. Because even at some point, Mark Shapiro in the earnings call said something to the effect of, "Oh, we've walked away from Netflix." Something to that effect, and he quickly corrected himself, saying, "Oh, not that Netflix had an offer." It's like, "Oh, come on now. Okay, you slipped up. Clearly, I think it makes sense that Netflix would have tried and bid for the PLEs, but no, there was no way to. They outright decided to leave the bigger offer with Netflix behind and got a smaller offer from ESPN, but saw more benefits out of it. Essentially, they pulled a Stephanie Vicaire. Look at WWE, if anything, they're doing exactly what they expect their talent to do, right? Come with us, it'll be much better here than if you go to the other places. Work for us for less. Well, they put their money where their mouth is, I'll tell you what. No, but I'm joking, but they probably, not only did they most assuredly weighed in the extra promotional gumption that ESPN could offer. They probably weighed that into a certain value. They were probably able to value that to a certain degree, and then they were able to say, "Oh, okay, I get it. This will get this much more, in advertising and promotion that we won't have to do anything for. So we're making less liquidity, but we're still getting a better offer overall," kind of thing. So I can understand that. That's probably what happened. So we mentioned NXT. So essentially, if you are a fan of the WWE in the United States, you need to have access to Netflix. You need to have access to ESPN. You need to have access to USA Network, and you need to have access to the CW if you want to catch everything. I think that's insane. I think it's insane because I don't think the product is worth that. It's all lights and fireworks and theme songs. I really don't understand the value that people see in plunking down so much money to watch all of this? I really don't understand it. I didn't see this coming. I was even fully expecting WWE to go down the pay-per-view route this year. I talked about it last year. I said, I'm convinced. I'm sure. I really thought they were going to go back to having people pay $60, $70 to watch the PLEs. At least at least the big five. The others, you throw them on, you throw them on the streaming services and whatnot, but the other ones you paywall them. I was sure they were going to do that. But no, instead, it's like join us on ESPN Plus, on ESPN period, I should say, for $30 a month. Now, there's a legitimate question that one can ask themselves, and that is after over a decade of WWE, basically offering all of their programming and PLEs for $10 a month, or the PLEs anyway, right? We're talking about the PLEs for about $10 a month. What are the how many WWE fans are going to be okay to say, yeah, I'm moving forward, $30 a month and I can watch all my favorite pay-per-views. How many are going to be like, yep, this is what I want to do? And maybe this is the stepping stone that they need to move back to full-on pay-per-view. Instead of going back to immediately $60, you're like, oh, let's ease them in with 30 plus. You get all of these sports, not just us, all these sports. But I don't know if it's that much of an issue. I don't know if a lot of WWE fans are already cable subscribers. Look, we'll see soon enough how this turns out, right? We'll see soon enough. We'll be able to observe all of this very, very soon enough. Plus, whatever Evolve is on your truly say, that's on it. Is it still on Tubi or is it just a YouTube thing now? I don't know. We talked about NXT quite a bit. What is going to happen to NXT and their premium live events? What is going to be NXT's streaming home for its past episodes? And where are the NXT PLEs going to air? Look, between you and I couldn't give a shit. NXT is so bad right now. I look, because the NXT major events, they're not included in the ESPN deal. Nick Khan said 10 PLEs, 12 nights. We've already figured that out. We're not talking NXT events. These are all WWE pay-per-views. So what is going to happen with the NXT? Are they just going to disappear forever? Or are they going to make a bigger push to have them on YouTube? Like they're doing, they did the Worlds Collide gimmick. They did the Worlds Collide gimmick. They did the, they're doing the Triple Mania gimmick too, right? They'll be airing those on YouTube. Maybe that's what they do moving forward. But, right now, NXT is a grand forgotten aspect of all of this right now. Chad is saying that they've heard rumors that they're planning to fill the Peacock void with NXT and AAA and TNA. Well, I've heard and I've read those same kinds of rumors. Not as much with NXT, but with AAA and TNA. I heard that WWE may be filling in the void over on Peacock with TNA and AAA. Now, AAA, sure, I can understand. It's theirs, right? The sale is done, right? The sale is concluded. AAA officially now becomes property of WWE and their Mexican business partner Philippe. Like that, so I can see them pushing AAA. TNA, I guess, like maybe this is what the TNA president, I forget his name right now, has been talking about, since around their Stand and Deliver paper. No, what is it called? Battledrome. But I can't remember. I don't care. They were talking about how they were getting hype that TNA was about to have this big deal coming up, this big media rights deal, and that they were very excited about it. And I'm like, oh, okay. what could it be? Well, it could be this. It could be WWE angling to get them on the Peacock. But then it also makes me wonder, well, because TNA for years has been using or has been building, I should say, its own streaming service, TNA Plus, right? Is this just if they go streaming on Peacock, right? What's the point of TNA Plus? So I don't know how conducive or counterintuitive that is. I'm sure TNA Plus is a loss, is a big loss for them. I'm convinced they're not making any money off of it. Like anything really sustainable, I'm sure that they've hit the ceiling on TNA Plus a long time ago, and it's just surviving by sheer will, I guess. Are they ready to scrap that? That could be a possibility. Maybe they're just waiting for the opportunity to kick TNA Plus to the curb, yet continue having access to streaming so that their fans can still be served in some way. That's entirely possible. That's entirely possible. And I don't think it's out of left field to think that TNA and AAA might be the actors here that jump in and fill the void, with WWE going, listen, these are, one of these is our Mexican property, right? You can tap right into the Latino market, which is true. And I mean, AAA has been trying to break into the Latino American market for years and years. Maybe this is finally the hook. Then they say, TNA, they're our guys, they're our fellas. Here, we'll put you in touch. Whatever amount TNA makes, because, seen reports saying that they might be getting a deal, let's say, for $10 million. Is it a year? Is it per year? And people are like, $10 million. It's $10 million more than they ever had. Like whatever media deal TNA can get out of this, it's going to be huge for them. Huge. So I've seen that, and I think it's possible. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Because there's a lot of all of these things. Look, lots of these WWE TV deals has just been coming out like straight out of nowhere. You're like, what? Whoa, ESPN? What? Like who? Like they're keeping things so close to the vest. Like you can tell these are not, the wrestling carnies that are handling these offers and are leaking shit to Dave. Clearly these are high-level boardroom executives that have nothing to do with this wrestling carny bullshit that we're used to, right? TNA makes no sense. Why would Peacock want fourth-tier wrestling? Peacock doesn't know what is four-tier wrestling or not. They have no idea. They're just like, oh, this is WWE endorsed. And they probably had a good relationship with them. They're like, because they wanted to keep them, they offered up $275 million a year to hang on to them. So they were ready to keep them. And if TNA is fourth-tier wrestling, what do you think AAA is? Jesus Christ. And then, like, on top of that, they say, the stars of WWE sometimes show up on TNA and AAA. They're an integral part of that brand as well. The superstars, all the stars, the Garzas, and Izzy Dame, they all show up on occasion on these brands. Remember, they're not promotions, they're brands. Remember that. So it's a big deal. It's a huge deal for WWE. And I'm going to ask the very cringe question, but nonetheless is interesting to think about in this circumstance. Will this have an impact on AEW? Just saying it out loud, just saying myself. I was like, I can't believe I just said that. But yes, will this have an impact on All Elite Wrestling? I think that this is probably a bit of a danger zone for AEW. And I'm not trying to be alarmist in any way, but I do think when you take a moment to think about it, it creates an entirely different environment for AEW. And if I'm Tony Khan, I'm a little more worried about, my future. Not saying that the company will fold or whatever, but when my own media deal is going to come up, the environment right now is going to be a lot harder to navigate. Let's break this down one thing at a time. I'll give you my whole thought process here. One can assume, and we're assuming, it's not necessarily a good thing to do, but bear with me here. We're just, let's role play a little bit. We can safely role play that there will likely be exclusivity clauses in WWE's contracts with with ESPN and their new partners, right? That they will have to be the only wrestling style show that will be permissible to be broadcast on their body of networks. And you're like, oh, well, ESPN is just the one. ESPN is just it's just a network. It's one network. But what if the deals go through Disney? What if this is a Disney thing? And it's unquestionably a Disney thing because, the reports were saying, the Wall Street Journal was saying, Disney's shelling out the money. So does this mean that all Disney properties will have to shut down? Will have to say no to AEW when they start renegotiating? We know Tony Khan, during his previous round of negotiations for the most recent media deal from last year's media deal, we know he spoke with people at Disney. Is that still on the table? Because probably not. Look, let's just say all of WWE's partners right now all have exclusivity clauses. Okay? That means Netflix, NBCU, and Disney are off the table for negotiations. So those are potentially three huge players that AEW does not have access to, that cannot go in, knock on the door, just, get some feelers, maybe get some talks, maybe get a number, get nothing. This has a legit possibility to hurt their leverage with Warner Bros. Discovery or Warner Bros. Or Discovery, like whatever the fuck, right? However it's going to end up. Or Discovery Sports. I don't know how any of this is going to work for WBD, right? So when the time comes around, Warner Bros. Is going to look at the market and be like, well, there's not many places you can go, fellas. And that gives a lot more leverage to Warner Bros. Than it does to AEW. That's one thing. I think the idea of I want to say free, but you know what I mean. I think the idea of free pay-per-views on cable TV is a bad thing for AEW. Like Tito Santana would say, not good news, because this means that on days that there will be WWE pay-per-views, people will be watching them more than they will be watching an AEW one, because the big shows will be on cable for free. So they will naturally watch. Look, it already happens right now in the world of professional wrestling right now. We've seen it multiple times. Instances where WWE has run head-to-head with an AEW pay-per-view. They've run head-to-head with them. And we've seen, or Collision or whatever. You just see with Collision. Collision takes a massive hit. Collision takes a massive hit when there's a WWE pay-per-view running at the same time on a Saturday night. That's just how it works. We've seen it multiple times. When there's a big event happening, like AEW always gets kicked in the balls when that happens. And AEW is going to be running pay-per-views on Saturdays because Tony does not run pay-per-views on Sundays during the NFL season. So there will be these head-to-head situations. And so you will have head-to-head situations where you will have unquestionably, because this is how WWE works, there will unquestionably be head-to-head events like a Full Gear or a World's End where suddenly WWE decides that it's Survivor Series on the same night as AEW Full Gear. Tony has to be afraid of this. And Nick Khan said, 10 to 12 10 pay-per-views, 12 nights, but this is meant to grow. We're going to grow this. Of course they are. And they're going to try and get as many of these pay-per-views on TV. Now, let's be real. If there is football, if there are big basketball games, big finals, anything that naturally consumes a ton of market share, ESPN, I don't think, will ever privilege running a WWE PLE in lieu of a football game or a college football game or the NBA finals. Like, there's no way. That's why I think like something like WrestleMania or SummerSlam, which are in very dead seasons, as far as big attraction sports, I think they work fine. Those will be fine. So don't get me wrong. Like ESPN is not going to, is not just going to turn into suddenly let's broadcast everything. It's still going to be select things, and they know they're going to have things that are going to draw bigger, better, get better ad rates than WWE, and they're going to go with those first. But on the days, the moments, the events, the parts of the year where there's nothing going on. So again, I think this kind of puts WWE in a very interesting position to be able to counter program maybe a little more effectively. I don't think the counter programming days are over. I think they might be getting worse. So that's how I think the WWE things might affect AEW. And I don't think this is good news. And I don't think Tony Khan looks at this, and shrugs it off. I'm pretty sure he looks at this and is like, we got to rethink our strategy. There's something here there's something we need to unlock here. Now, listen, we're in year one of the deal still, right? Of AEW's new deal. We're still in year one. We've got 3 years plus left plus 1 year, one year option, right? I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to go, if I remember correctly. So, so many things can happen. So many things can happen. Because don't forget, here's one thing. In 5 years, right, Netflix has an option to get out of their contract with WWE. If the situation that they're in right now, I know it's a 10-year deal, but in 5 years, there is an option where Netflix can exercise to get out of the deal and throw WWE out the window. If it stops doing all this solid performances that everyone seems so enamored about, they're such a great performer. Well, maybe that's if it stops being that, maybe Netflix might open up for AEW to sit down and talk about. And I don't want to give you the impression that I'm dooming and glooming, okay? I know it sounds kind of like that, but I still maintain, and anyone that has a reasonable mind will have the same type of thought. AEW will always be fine moving forward. It will always have a home. It will always be on TV in some way. Tony Khan has access to infinite amounts of money, all right? The promotion is not closing shop. It's not a rinky-dink operation that is bankrolled by, like whatever, a pasta making, shop. What am I talking about? It's not like bankrolled by a guy who just, who won the lottery and is like, hey, let's start up a wrestling company. It goes a little deeper than that, right? So Tony has access to so much money to keep this running. It's not ideal. Billionaires don't like to spend their money, trust me. But the one thing that billionaires like less than spending money is giving the impression that they lost something, that they're going to take an L. So Tony, I'm pretty sure, would rather, dip into the reserves as opposed to just like let the company die out. So I'm still adamant, fervent that AEW is going to be fine wherever it goes. The question is, will it be able to get good deals moving forward, better deals? They'll probably be able to get raises, but maybe not the bigger raises that they would have been hoping for, because the market has constricted around them, because WWE is spreading itself everywhere. And this is a consequence of that. AEW, like maybe being in a rougher negotiating environment, is a consequence of WWE spreading itself out and piecemealing its content. Those are consequences. And yes, I think that they'll continue to lock down something on Peacock, and they're going to do something with TNA to screw with AEW's chances. Like this, these are all also part of their strategy, trying to choke out. If you can't stomp them out, we're going to try and choke them out instead, right? It's big news. It's huge news. It's a big change for WWE. It's a big change for its fans. It will have an impact, unquestionably. I sincerely believe that it will have an impact on AEW's future moving forward. Again, I'm not saying that it's going to outright kill it, but it will not outright kill it, but it will have an impact. I think that's to think it won't is naive. How about that? And it's one of these things that time will tell. Time will tell just how deep it's going to go and how far reaching this WWE deal is going to be, and what kind of impact it'll have on the business overall. Want to talk about some comments that Triple H made after SummerSlam Night 2. There's no more pressers. There's post shows now. We talked about this. Not rehashing that aspect. But during this post show, Triple H, post show SummerSlam Night 2, he was asked about Brock Lesnar's return and how they finagled that. And this is what he had to say. This is the exact quote right here that we are looking for. This is John Cena's wish list. John Cena's, it's him writing the last chapter of his book. And I think people saw a conversation with us where he said we'd have to screw it up pretty badly to ruin his career. But it's not about that for me. It's about John being able to go out the way he wants to go out to write his chapter. Now, everyone who saw this, myself, probably you as well, you A+ audience to this D-List podcast, you probably saw this and said, oh, there we go again. Our old Triple H here deflecting blame once more. He doesn't want to take responsibility for what's going on here. He knows that they fucked up, that this was contentious. So he doesn't want the heat. Triple H will take all of the good stuff. He'll go out at the start of a show and get a massive pop. He will say all the great things are about him. Look, he's so great, such a great guy, and he opens himself up so much that he even created a television show on Netflix where you can watch him just be the greatest booker of all time. Open himself up, bare bones. So Brock coming back, well, hey, John wanted this. John wanted to fight Brock Lesnar in his last year. And we all knew. When I say we, of course, we knew that this was full of shit. Because at the very least, not Brock Lesnar, but Triple H is the head of creative, so he has to okay this. At the very least, he has to be, okay. He's giving us the impression that all these guys and gals, they just, they don't really have a say. The Rock coming in and, doing his stuff is like, the Rock came in and messed up all his plans. But aren't you in charge, Paul? At WrestleMania, The Rock, he threw a monkey wrench into everything 2 years in a row. But aren't you in charge, Paul? Aren't you the boss of creative? Aren't you putting these shows together? Anyway, went off track here. John Cena, on the 2 days ago, he was doing a little interview here. He was he was doing a little interview on Adam's Apple podcast or show or whatever. I never heard of that. Maybe this is another sports thing that people are like, oh, well, of course, Warren. I don't know who these people are. And the interviewer, Adam Glynn, talked about him wanting to about Lesnar returning to WWE. Cena said, quote, "I've been saying the same thing for 25 years. They deal him, I play him." Well, isn't that interesting? Isn't that just interesting? It may seem innocuous, right? But doesn't this sound to you, John Cena rebuffing what Paul Levesque said? Is like, no, man, they just tell me who to fight and I'll fight them. Now, I'm gonna call a certain amount of bullshit on this, okay? Because a guy like John Cena, especially when Vince was around, Vince is no longer around, but especially when Vince was around, a guy like Cena did sort of have an opportunity to call his shots. I think there's a reason why John Cena, it was that John Cena didn't put anyone of the Nexus over, that he ended up plowing through him. Was it all really just a Vince thing, or was it, maybe John is like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not jobbing to Husky Harris. I'm not jobbing to Bad News Guy. I'm not doing any of this. I'm not doing that. A well-placed, that doesn't work for me, brother, can do wonders. So, there's a certain amount of bullshit that I have to call on when he said, 25 years, they line him up, I knock him down. Sure. Maybe. And there's probably guys that Cena's fought that he felt he should do, but, didn't want to lose to or whatever. But this is not John Cena from 2012, 2008. This is not ruthless aggression John Cena. This is not, a hustle, loyalty, respect Cena. This is not support the troops Cena. This is none of these Cenas. Because our John Cena that we have now in 2025 is a Hollywood movie star. He's in Hollywood now, and he's doing well. He's got all these little projects, and he's in the freshly rebooted DC universe. His Peacemaker gimmick hasn't been thrown to the trash. He's pals with James Gunn, who is overseeing the DCU. What the fuck does he have to do with any of this? He's doing his last tour for WWE. I'm sure he's getting a nice amount of money to do it. Sure. He's going around, he's doing his thing. The whole heel turn happens. Look, 10 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there is no way in hell John Cena is doing a heel turn where he's like, yep, let's do it. There's no way. But now he doesn't care. He doesn't care because he's got bigger fish to fry than Paul Levesque coming out with his little problematic company trotting out as problematic wrestlers and saying, John Cena asked for this. John Cena gonna, no. You know, he just backhandedly says no, because he's got other, in a week or so, he's going to be on a media tour promoting Peacemaker, which is going to be even more watched after the success of the Superman thing. People are going to be watching Peacemaker much more this year because they want to see how all of this ties in. Because James Gunn said that the Peacemaker is going to have, he's going to be a crucial part of this reboot. So people are excited. People are into it. And I like Peacemaker. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a funny show. It was good. It was funny. I enjoyed it. I'm excited for season 2. You think he's got time for this? You think he gives a shit about this? He doesn't care about pro wrestling anymore. It's a nice little way to get some money. You know, yes, he's saying goodbye to the fans. I'm sure, I don't want to give I think this is a guy who does want to end his career properly and go off into the sunset and basically say, stop expecting me to show up. I'm retired kind of thing. I want to do movies. I want to participate in film where I get paid so much more money and my body is put through so much less duress than being a pro wrestler. So Triple H can come out and say, oh yeah, John Cena wanted this. John Cena's like, okay, yeah. They lined him up for me. They dealt him. I'll play him. I think it's fascinating. Because here's the thing, and we talk about this often when we dress down Paul Levesque, and here we go again. Paul needs a shield. He needs something to deflect the criticism on. He needs this. If it's not Dwayne The Rock, it's his bosses at TKO, his faceless bosses at TKO, right? I even saw people saying, oh, it's TKO that forced Paul Levesque to go to the White House for the health gimmick late last week. Couldn't help but laugh. It's not Paul Levesque who's going to be cutting people. He doesn't fire people. It's TKO. We've explained this. We'll probably have to explain it all over again in a couple of days because I feel my gut says there's going to be WWE cuts coming up probably even tomorrow. That's just my gut. Just my gut, because we've had an earnings call. There's a couple of signs in there, SmackDown is 1 hour less than they thought it was going to be. They have a full hour weekly, 1 less hour weekly on their inventory. I think there's some cuts coming up. So again, we're going to put up the shields. Oh, it's TKO making the cuts. No, it's Paul. It's WWE, not TKO. Paul always needs the shields. So now he was putting one up. It was going to be John Cena. It's John Cena who was throwing under the bus. Hey, listen, if you're not happy with Brock Lesnar, John Cena is the guy you should be talking to, right? He's the guy who wanted it. So I'm like, all I could do was oblige. I mean, it's John Cena looking to wrap up his career in the best way possible. I'm just a facilitator. Pick a lane, Trips. Either you are, a bigwig decision maker in this company, or you're just a middleman serving the whims of your talent. You can't have it both ways. You really fucking can't have it both ways. So he tried to do the deflection onto Cena, and Cena very casually just goes, no. Now, one of them's telling the truth, and I have a tendency to think that it's the guy who has no real ties left with WWE, that everything that he used to know about WWE is gone. Vince and the structure that Vince had, it's gone. It's another place. I don't think he feels all that invested. I think it's that guy, as opposed to the other guy who has a track record, an observable track record of throwing people under the bus so that he can avoid taking criticism. Because he is soft as Charmin, baby. A big man, a big, powerful man, juiced up man, strong man, soft as a cloud, as a soft snowfall in December. Again, I cannot believe. It is fascinating to me that these people in these immense positions, these people making so much cash, so much money, are at the same time so incredibly soft. Do not forget, this is a guy who preferred to say post-match pressers are finished on the night that Brock Lesnar returned because he was too afraid to receive questions from the WWE press corps, which is made up of influencers and fans who already ask him the softest questions in the world. He was too afraid, too craven to stand in front of those people, those softball questions. What up, legend? How does it feel to run 2 SummerSlams in a row? Those types of questions. He was afraid to even stand in front of those people and get maybe a slightly curveball question. He had to go sit nice and quiet with Rosenberg and Big E and say, well, here's I gotta wash my hands of this. This is this Brock stuff. It's Cena. Cena wanted to do that. It's not on me, folks. I wish I could have done something. If only I could have done something. If only I was in a position where I could have said, no, this is bad, but no, look, I got washing my hands. It's all done. What can I do? He's back. Cena wanted it. It's out of my hands. And then this is a guy who will come out and take credit for everything. Again, he cannot have it both ways. Can't have the cake and eat it too. He has to pick a lane. Either you are the leader, the top guy that you say you are, or you are just the fucking middle manager. It's incredible the amount of disdain I have developed for Triple H over the past year. But it's actually phenomenal. Like, I myself am sort of taken aback where I'm like, this guy has never been like someone I zero into this hard, that I try to dress down. I've never, like, I've poked fun, but now it's like, now this guy, he's so empty and hypocritical and devoid of anything real to offer. And creating such a subpar product at the same time, something that is completely devoid of feeling, of authenticity, just the most plastic, phony, fake product you could actually fathom. He's devising it, and he's coming out and trying to get praise for it all. He's pretending so much, and it's infuriating that people can't see it. That they can't see that behind all the bluster, there is nothing. There's just a void, a man devoid of ideas, of real creative juices, who's more intent in putting himself over, of him being the top guy of the company. I can't believe I'm talking about this again. Which again is fascinating. Because I have not been this invested in dressing this man down ever. Because I felt like everyone saw right through Triple H. I really did. That everyone saw right through him. 25 years cosplaying as a top guy. I thought everyone saw through this, clearly not. Let's talk about this. AEW roster member has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Oh boy. I'm sure you've all heard about this by now. According to Fightful, MVP has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way backstage in AEW. This sentiment has been expressed by a number of talents, again, according to Fightful, a number of talents on the roster. The Hurt Syndicate member has made it known that he does not like Speedball Mike Bailey, and he did not want Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin losing to Bailey and Kevin Knight. It's not clear why MVP dislikes Bailey or if Hurt Syndicate was ever actually planned to lose to Jet Speed. The report also states that MVP turned down pitches for the Hurt Syndicate to lose to FTR at Forbidden Door and All In. MVP reportedly suggested that they would rather lose to the Gates of Agony, the Outrunners, or Private Party, 3 teams they have already defeated this year. There is said to be frustration within the locker room, AEW locker room for that matter, that the faction beats everyone up, high fives the fans, does cool moves when they are supposed to be heels. However, numerous people have also expressed numerous people have also expressed that the backstage environment in the company is the best it's been in years. It was also noted that the storyline with MJF was originally planned to run longer, though there was no reported heat between MJF and the group. So, I'm sure you've all heard these reports here. I talked a little bit about this on the AEW Dynamite review this week. But, I also wanted to bring this up here and talk about it maybe a little more. Because look, I have always I feel like I always have the same kind of reflexes whenever this type of information pops up, right? I always feel like I have the same kind of flashbang, where it's like, okay, wrestlers backstage don't like each other. So basically your report is wrestling locker room is acting like a wrestler locker room, news at 11. I don't care. That's something where I'm like, who cares? I don't care as long as it doesn't affect what I'm watching on TV. That's the thing. Now we'll get into that in a second. But when I first see these reports, I'm like, oh, who cares? Honestly, it's a wrestling locker room. What do you want from me? And that MVP doesn't like Speedball Mike Bailey. Look, it's shocking. I'm like, why would you who dislikes Speedball Mike Bailey? Who sits around going, Speedball Mike Bailey, that son of a bitch, It's like, who doesn't like Mike Bailey? And that's a little more shocking. But then again, look, here's the thing. Here's one thing that I understand about MVP from what I've gathered, okay? And I want to remind everyone, I don't have sources within AEW, okay? I'm not plugged into people that I can text up and say, what the fuck is going on? I'm not a scoopster, right? Just pay attention. I'm fortunate enough to be well connected with people who are well connected, and we can, information is shared and so on and so forth. And, so I'm like, okay. And from everything that I know about MVP, he is a guy who does not bullshit. You will know on exactly what footing you stand with the guy, on which footing you stand with the guy, because he will make it clear if he likes you or if he doesn't like you. Not outright come up and say, you fucking suck, and slap you across the face. That's not what I mean. But it will be clear. Now, why doesn't he like Mike Bailey? Or at least we know he doesn't anymore. But help me work with me here, okay? I want you to work through my thought process here. Why wouldn't he like Mike Bailey? Now, knowing that he's a guy who is very upfront and doesn't bullshit, maybe, he walks past him backstage, and maybe Mike Bailey doesn't look up and shake his hand because Bailey is texting or he's fucking playing Balatro or whatever the fuck. And MVP takes it as a slight. You know how wrestlers are with these weird rules backstage, right? That could be a thing. Maybe he sees his gear. He sees he's the most, he's the whitest guy in the locker room, and he's like, and maybe his feeling is, he does nothing for me, as opposed to, I don't like him. Maybe it's just like, Mike Bailey, yeah, sure. We don't know. What could it possibly mean? And it could be on a spectrum of things. But it turns out they seem cool. They seem fine with each other. They put out so they do their little video. You've seen it. I don't have it queued up, but you know what I'm talking about. They have the video where Mike Bailey is doing a little thing on his GoPro. An MVP. They basically playfully banter, telling each other to fuck off, and the Hurt Business is there, and they do that with their heads low, and everything seems cool and it's fine. And honestly, I don't care. Again, I don't care if they don't like each other. This should not be news. And you shouldn't care either. Because you know why? Because you don't know these people. You don't know these people. I saw people on Blue Sky yesterday. It was like, well, here on Blue Sky, we are a team. We're clearly Team Speedball. Yeah, there's no team. Don't pick a team. There's no team. We don't know these people. Don't create links that aren't there. I'm on team. I do not know these people. I'm on team. I do not know these people. I am not going to vouch for them. I'm not going to say Speedball is the best guy when I don't know the guy. All I know is that he's a professional wrestler that entertains me and that I like. And he seems to have a good head on his shoulders. He's a good little guy from Montreal. Like I don't fucking know. I'm not going to pick a side here. When I don't have to pick a side. I'm not involved. Doesn't concern me. I don't know these people. God damn it. I don't care enough about whether they get along or not. It's none of my concern. What was irritating was people pretending that this was a WWE psyop or whatever. Don't get me started. Why are we... too late. You got me started. What AEW fans have to calm the fuck down on, and it really is irritating, is when there's the slightest bit of bad news that gets published about, or starts making the rounds, not even gets published, just starts making the rounds about AEW, right? Something happening, just a little negative news. And if it dares to happen on a pay-per-view week or on a Wednesday, and it's like, oh no, this is clearly, again, the conspiracy. Look, it's good that people are media aware, all right? Because I think the whole CM Punk saga has broken a lot of brains. I think a lot of people have created a heightened sense of, and you know, with the Legental activity, I think a lot of people have acquired a heightened sense of precaution when it comes to the stories that are put out regarding AEW and wrestling in general, and when they are released and who's saying what. And I think that's a good thing. But I also think you need to rationalize and stop being a fucking weirdo. That whenever something happens on a Dynamite, that it's suddenly some kind of conspiracy. Like that at some point, it's not everything being stacked up against All Elite Wrestling. Sometimes it's just something's just going to happen, or something's going to report a little this and that, and it's just going to be some bad news, and that's all there is to it. But then it's like, oh, of course, it's coming out on a Wednesday. Oh no, we're chipping away at AEW. We're breaking everything down. AEW can't have anything nice. It's the Fed. The Fed is feeding news to the sheets. Oh my God! Like it's always extremes with these fucking fans. You know, it's like you can applaud them for developing like media literacy, but then they take it too far. It's always too much. My God. All right, back to the MVP thing. So okay, so why am I talking about this? And you're probably, you know, if you're smart, you're probably saying, well, Warren, if you don't care about wrestlers being mean to each other backstage or not liking each other backstage, why are you talking about it then if you don't care? Well, because the other elements here I do care about, and they all come in together with stuff that I've heard and that I know. And look, the reports that, you know, they're difficult to work with, that they're turning down jobs and whatnot. I don't understand that. I don't understand it. Because there's one guy in control in this company. There's one guy in control. There's one boss, and it's Tony Khan. And Tony Khan, like, recently said, right, not that long ago said something to the effect of, well, we got to, moving forward, I want to work with people who are good with AEW, who connect with our values, or who are good fits, right? That's what he was talking about, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, if he's dealing with people who are turning down pitches and whatnot, that's one thing, right? But if MVP is going to him and saying, my boys are not going to do any jobs and so on and so forth, like, that's preposterous. Like, Tony Khan has to put his foot down and say, no, and I would assume that this is where Tony Khan is at now. I would assume that, everything that happened with the Elite and CM Punk, and then, the other malcontents that followed, I think at this point if he hasn't learned how to change his leadership style at this point, nothing will. And I'm sorry, like, I have trouble believing that he's still okay with undercard talent. Keep this in mind. Undercard talent coming forward and saying, no, we are not going to do these jobs. Yes, undercard talent. The Hurt Business are a nice little undercard, mid-card tag team. And I have never heard, outside of just people who make up bullshit and who, about pro wrestlers right and left, I have never heard of a mid-carder throwing their weight around and throwing that's not going to work for me, brother. And wrestling is complicated when it comes to these creative things. Negotiations, back and forth, that's a good idea. But what if we did this? Oh, well, let me go see what the others. You go with the others. Well, what if we did this? Well, that's a pretty good idea, but we'd prefer it if we did not. Like, there's so much back and forth on these ideas, on these creatives. I refuse to believe that these guys are throwing so much weight around that they're refusing to do jobs. Now, are there people that they don't want to work with? That I have a little more faith in, okay? And there's a difference there. Like the report says here, they turned down pitches for the Hurt Syndicate to lose to FTR. What were the nature of the pitches? But that has a little more. There's teeth to that one, I think. MVP reportedly suggested that they would rather lose to the Gates of Agony, Outrunners, and Private Party. That's some smooth talking. That's some smooth talking Carney work right there. Because as the report pointed out, they beat all these guys. And why would the Hurt Business be okay losing to the Outrunners? No disrespect to the Outrunners. You know how I feel about the Outrunners, and that connects directly here. Why would the Hurt Business be like, sure, we'll lay down for the Outrunners, but not FTR, who are systematically a top tag team in AEW's tag team division? Private Party? Why would the fuck would they lie down for Private Party? This is Carney talk, in my opinion. Frustration within the locker room that the faction beats people, and that they're supposed to be heels and they act like baby faces. Look, I agree with that. And it addresses sentiments that I've gathered as well. It addresses a lot of sentiments. I don't think, outside of these, these specific things here, right? The MVP turning down pitches and, wanting to lose to these, lower card teams. Those are very specific things, but again, I don't think they ultimately matter. I think what they are is they're a symptom of this bigger problem here, where there's a lot of frustration in regards to, what the Hurt Syndicate is doing in AEW right now. Because I do agree, they're supposed to be heels, but they're getting babyface reactions. And I think that's why maybe they might be turning babyface. I don't know. We'll see. You know, MVP has been criticized for being particularly harsh on promos against other guys, and unnecessarily so, preventing other guys from getting over, looking like schmucks ultimately, you know, doing the opposite of good promo work. And I think that that's been an issue, and I think it does create frustrations. And you know, I went back because I haven't re-listened to All In because since I was there, I didn't listen to commentary. I wasn't there, you know, I wasn't plugged in listening to the commentary table. But apparently MVP was there, was on the microphone, was on play-by-play during the Gauntlet, and he was very disgraceful. Or at least he wasn't putting over Mystico's entrance. He was, you know, there was a lot of things he was doing a little haywire, a little weird, that may have rubbed some people the wrong way, including the boss. You know, I've seen reports that the boss, Tony Khan, he's fed up with all of this. You know, you look back at the history of the syndicate, right? Since they joined, you know, Bobby Lashley, you know, tossed Swerve Strickland around. Swerve Strickland put over Bobby Lashley big time in that one match for that one program, and we have never spoken of that ever again. That has never been brought up ever again. Not for a rematch, not even Swerve Strickland saying, you know, referencing that night, or Bobby Lashley referencing that night. No, it is never, or MVP referencing it. It has never been brought up again. I wonder why. I think there's a collection of things that have happened in the locker room that are creating frustrations and tensions from a certain amount of people within the locker room. And it's starting to boil over. Now there's someone in that locker room who's fed up, who's had enough. Is like, all right, I'm talking to the press. I'm reaching out to a source and I'm spilling some beans. And people ran with that. And this is where we're at right now. So I want to make something very clear, because I think there are two aspects to this story. And the aspect that I've been talking about here, outside of the speedball stuff, right? Outside of rubbing people the wrong way and whatnot. Outside of that, if there are growing frustrations in the locker room regarding the contribution of the Hurts, and specifically MVP, I think is the issue, then something has to be done about it. And I think that's this story. I think there's fire to the smoke, folks. I think there's fire to the smoke. I wouldn't poo-poo this part. I wouldn't go, like a bunch of people said, you know, a lot of the AEW defenders, the same people who go all psyop, they go, oh, well, this is a nothing burger. Yes, I think the speedball stuff, I thought it was nothing burger from the start. MVP rubbing people the wrong way, who cares? That's locker room stuff. I don't give a shit. But if more and more people, if we're sitting on a powder keg, or if the water in the kettle is getting a little hot, pick your analogy, then maybe we're getting close. Maybe we're edging closer to something that might be a little close to reality, and might end up spilling onto television. And maybe in a way that will affect our enjoyment of AEW wrestling. You know, one of the things I think that we're going to be keeping an eye on very closely is FTR versus Brodito next week. Because they're in the finals of the tournament. If Brodito goes forward in the tournament and gets to challenge the Hurt Syndicate for the titles, again, there might be a little more heat to this flame here. I think we might be onto something, and it could be disastrous. It needs to be quashed, though. If this is a situation where the locker room is getting so heated and so fed up that someone has decided to leak backstage stuff about the Hurt Syndicate, regardless of how true it is or not, this is a campaign to switch public opinion. This is exactly what this is. And when you think about it, when is the last time something about backstage maneuvering and nonsense has happened in AEW? It hasn't happened in a while. So when the report here says that despite what's going on here, the backstage environment in the company is the best it's been in years, I believe it, because people are not hightailing to the sheets, to Dave, to SRS, to Mike Johnson at any given moment to spill the beans. That's not what they're doing. 2 years ago, that's all that would happen. That's all it was. The locker room seemed in complete disarray because everyone was tired, fed up, angry, irritated, frustrated. They were just venting. They're just getting everything out there. And of course, the Punk camp as well. If Tony Khan wants to get a grip on this, and he has to get a grip on this so that it doesn't devolve into something more serious, he has to do it sooner than later. So I would tell you, kind listeners, viewers of the Mr. Warren Hayes show, I would tell you to not worry about it. I would tell you to be aware of it and keep an eye how things develop. Things might develop in a way, but things are going to develop out of this, right? Moving forward, I wouldn't ignore this part here where people are upset backstage. I think there's more than enough things that have happened on screen to warrant folks getting a little irritated. That's, we'll see how things evolve. And honestly, I think this is a good moment for Tony Khan to show if he's learned anything about leadership, if he's changed anything about his leadership ways, in a post CM Punk world. Has he gathered anything? And I say post CM Punk, a post Ricky Starks world, a post Malachi Black world, a post Miro world. Has he, a post Lucha Brothers world? Has he figured it out? Has those situations, have they turned into learning experiences, or are we just going to repeat the same mistakes of the past? To be continued. To be continued. I'm sure you weren't expecting that kind of take. Yeah, they make Big Bill and Brian Keith look like geeks in that promo, talking over them, etc. Yeah, a little rough. That was a little rough one, but nonetheless, when I reviewed it, I'm still like, look, it might have been a little saucy, a little on the rough side, but these are all guys that are angling to get over. Right? And I really didn't have that much of an issue with it because the Hurt Syndicate, nonetheless, their aura, their character is that they're alpha males. So they're going to, if you show weakness, they're going to eat you up. So, I still hang on to that, to that analysis because I think it still makes sense. But I can also understand people who would argue and say, yeah, but they could have done it in a different way, one that would have allowed their opponents to shine a little bit. And that I agree with, because just like we said with the promo, if you let your opponents come across as schlubs, when you beat them, there's nothing impressive about it. They're just like, well, we knew there were schlubs. You beat the schlubs. Who cares? The last thing I want to talk about, of things that have annoyed me, that have made me upset, that I'm that I'm excited to no longer hear about or talk about. There's one more thing, and that's the G1 Climax 35. I am so disappointed and upset by what has happened in this tournament. Look, okay. I've been covering, I've been doing weekly coverage over the past 2 weeks on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast. So I've been staying abreast. I've been watching everything, and we are now down to the nitty gritty. The last nights of block action are upon us. In fact, the last night of A block happened this weekend on Sunday, on the 10th, and the last night of action for B block is going to be on the 13th, I believe. And there are 3 people moving forward from Block A, as we know, and going into the playoffs. Those people are Yota Tsuji, David Finlay, and Evil. And Evil is the guy out of these 3 who gets the bye. We're not moving any of the young guys forward outside of Yota Tsuji. And I sort of struggled to call him a young guy anymore because he's in his 30s, young 30s, right? He's part of a new generation, but he's not a young guy anymore. He's not like Ryohei Oiwa, who is legitimately a young guy, or Yuya Uemura, who was younger than him, right? But we're not moving any of those forward. No. This is what we're deciding to do. We're deciding to move forward with David Finlay, who one would have thought by now that a booker would have figured out that Dave Finlay is not going to be a top guy in the company. And I'm saying this as someone who likes Dave Finlay a lot. I really, really like Dave Finlay. But got to be real here. David Finlay is not going to be a top guy in the company. And you're going to move forward Evil into a guy that not only no one expects to see win, but that people are fed up of seeing in this house of torture environment and nonsense. No one wants to see this anymore. It's annoying. It's repetitive. It's redundant. He's a dud. And in the context of the G1, which should be this tournament where that showcases, the fighting spirit, the Tokan spirit and whatnot. One of these guys is making it to the end, via cheating and all sorts of typical shenanigans, because they're not creative. It's not exciting. It's the same shit over and over and over again. And now we're going to get a block final guaranteed that will have shenanigans and cheating and whatnot. And I cannot not wait for that. I don't know why this booker in this company thought that it was a good idea. I cannot even fathom that this was perceived to be a good idea. And none of the young guys are moving forward, at least in A block, right? There's nothing exciting about this. There's nothing fresh. Everything has been rehashed. Same thing year after year after year. And look, we've been saying this. Because it's not just me. I don't want to take credit for this. I'm not alone. We have been saying this for 3 to 4 years easily, that Gedo needs to push the young guys because the old guys are all old. They're slowly going on their way out. You won't be able to depend on Tanahashi and Naito and Okada's going to need some new guys. And all of a sudden, whoop, Kazuchika Okada's leaving. So all of these guys, your true stars of the company, all in one shape or form, all disappearing from the company. But it's not something that just happened this year. This has been visible and prevalent for years at this point. And we have been talking all day, 3 to 4 years about how Gedo has to give us a statement G1 to put the new guys over. A G1 that will put the stamp on these guys, whoever he selected, so that we can say, all right, these are the guys that we're going to look for moving forward. This is going to be the next crop of top guys in New Japan. There's your new ace. Here are all the guys who are going to contend for that spot. Here they all are, and we see, and the G1 is the perfect spot to do it. But every year, it doesn't happen. And we fall back on the old standards. And now the old standards are either retired or have left the company. There is no one. So again, this year, we were saying, if there was ever a year for this statement G1, this would be the year to do it, because everyone's gone. There are no stars. This is the year to do it. And what happens? We end up, look at what happens in Block A, and we're right back to where we were. Nothing fresh. Nothing new. The entire block, parity booked. I talked about it last week. Booking parity. Not parody, parity. Everything on the same level. Everyone, 8 points, 10 points. No one standing out. No, not a single guy in the block where the booker says, this is our dude. You got to keep an eye on this one. This is the guy I want you to cheer for. And here's the other guy I want you to cheer for. These are playoffs now. We're not single elimination block tournaments. And it's not a single elimination block tournament. But it's not just one winner of the block anymore. There's 3 guys to advance. I talked about it last week. Your stories are simple. Your number 1 guy who you want the people to get behind. The new young ace of the company. Push him to the number 1 spot. Then you have a war for the number 3 spot with everyone that's left behind. Everyone trying to sneak their way into number 3. That's the story you tell with these G1 brackets this year. Because you need stars. And you don't have any. And you don't even have people for your fans to get behind. I don't know who I should get behind, because I feel like the rug can be pulled from under their feet at any given moment. Anyway, I'm exhausted. I'm out of breath when it comes to the statement G1 and having people come together and provide a direction for a new, exciting direction for the company. I can't argue this anymore. I have been psychologically defeated by Gedo's uninspired, unrelenting, nonsense booking that has been the same thing for years at this point. This was the year to make it make sense. When you've got exciting prospects in Block A alone, like Umera and Oiwa and Bolton Oleg, who all had outstanding matches in this tournament, who are bringing the spirit of the G1, right? Even had Shota Umino throughout all this. He's on the other block, right? But he didn't even look all that bad, right? And Ryohei Oiwa, at some point, this poor kid has got to be wondering, man, why didn't I just stay in Noah? Why did I not just stay in Pro Wrestling Noah? And you're putting forward Dave Finlay, that is not going to work. It's like the Mean Girls meme. Stop trying to make Dave Finlay a thing. It's not going to work. I like Dave Finlay. He's not a top guy. And Evil, which just saps the joy out of watching New Japan Pro Wrestling when he is in the ring. Just completely because of the House of Torture fucking nonsense. 15 years of Bullet Club nonsense, and it's still the same thing. My original concern when I did my first weekly wrap up was me wondering where today's generation, where today's stars were going to be after this. That was my concern. You knew they were going to do something with Tsuji. because they feel like Tsuji has the crowd connection. And if anything, I think Yota Tsuji has shown spark and life and fire in this tournament like he has not shown so far. I think, look, he's not suddenly a ball of fire, but I've seen him starting to reach another level, starting to change gears overall. And I can get behind that. And this is a guy who has a natural crowd connection with the audience. We always talk about it here as well. I think look, there's a lot of good in Yota Tsuji. I think he's making it to the finals. Look, if he doesn't, it's an utter complete travesty. They don't know what they're doing anymore. But the rest of these people, you've got Yuya Uemura and Ryohei Oiwa, who had one of the absolute best matches of this entire tournament, one-on-one, having this phenomenal match where you're looking at it and you're like, yes, this is the pro wrestling that I expect from New Japan, that has urgency, two guys that are jockeying for top spots, that are working with each other, but also seem to be working against each other, and good old, some healthy competitiveness. And they are sent packing. Uemura in the main event on the last night of Block A loses to David Finlay. Unreal. They refuse to book any of them strong. With the parity booking this year, it was really bad in A block, but it's the same thing in Block B. The parity booking this year made goddamn sure no one stood apart, right? What are you going to do to try and convince us that these young guys are anything worth your attention when they are tying it up in Block A again with Yoshihashi, when they finish with 8 points with Yoshihashi? Nothing against Yoshihashi. I think he's a good little hand, great tag team wrestler. But here's another guy in his 40s. What are we doing? What are we protecting? Why couldn't Ryohei Oiwa have run through this guy? Why did we feel compelled in a year where you have to make these stars feel crucial and special? Why did we feel compelled for Yoshihashi to have an 8-point tournament, to send the message that all of the new guys out there are just as good as Yoshi fucking Hashi? Nothing against the old guys. Look, Taichi had a tremendous tournament, and he brought the best out of all the opponents he was in the ring with. Taichi was great. He was a joy to watch. He didn't finish at the top of the leaderboard either. And he understood, he delivered some of the best G1 matches in this tournament. He was a part of them. He worked hard every day. Not that they didn't work hard, but it all goes back to my point. It's like, why are people holding back? Why is the booking holding back? Why are they not just unleashing these guys? I don't understand it. There's no ace in this company. There's no ace, and worse off, there's no supporting cast to go after the ace. There's no challengers to the ace. There's no one. What, Shota Umino, who the fans outright reject, who can't hold a candle to some of his other contemporaries? He's not bad, but there are better young guys out in that company right now that they could be pushing. New Japan is so terrified to pull the trigger on any of them. I don't know why. I don't know why they are so terrified to not just take a look at their young talent and say, all right, we're banking on these guys now. Look at what happened in Pro Wrestling Noah when they did exactly that. They were in a slump in their post-Muta retirement era, right? So they bring in Ozawa, new guy, and suddenly they're super hot. Everyone's excited about it. They're filling Korakuen every night. Look at Stardom. Look at Stardom. Decide to start pushing new faces, new young faces. Saya Kamitani at the top. And they are doing the best. They're doing runaway business right now. The best business in the history of Stardom. Oh yeah, even when Rossi, this alleged legendary booker, was around. So much better. But again, who is at the helm of these promotions? Who are they pushing forward right now? Young people, new faces, keeping it fresh. While New Japan can't let go. Why are they so fucking afraid? It's not as if they have this embarrassment of riches upon which their Tokyo Dome shows can be built upon. It's not as if they can fall back on it. They can't. Tanahashi's leaving on January 4th. Look, there's rumors Naito might come back, but he can only go so far. Out of all it is fascinating that the only one of this new generation of guys that they decided to move forward in this tournament was Yota Tsuji, when they could be strapping a rocket to any of them. And the whole booking of the G1, with the fucking parody booking where everyone is just one big massive blob of points with no one sticking out, no one feels important, no one feels like they're special, like they're worth something, like you need to invest in them. All just junk. I'm exhausted trying to get this point across, trying to have to say the same thing year after year with these G1s, and we fall right back into the same traps. So you know what? I don't usually fall into these, hate trains or whatever that happen, in wrestling fandom. It's like, oh, you got to get rid of this guy, you got to fire this guy. I usually try to stay away from that, but I feel like I've been really, really, really patient, and my patience is on thin ice right now. I think we need to get rid of Gedo and his minions. We need someone fresh at the helm of booking for this company. New ideas, new directions. Just try anything out at this point. Gedo seems incapable of adapting. And this is not me saying that he stinks and that it suddenly invalidates everything that he's done. Gedo has objectively been on a legendary run with the company. It's been, his tenure as booker is Hall of Fame material. I don't think you can question that. But now he's completely disconnected. He's not into it. He's not listening. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what it is. But whatever it is, get it out. We're done. Bring in someone who will shake things up and make this company interesting. Because it's not. And there's solid wrestling. There's great talent. But on top of that, you need the drama. You need the emotion. You need the connection. And I am fearful that the guys that I'm into every time, the guys that I want to see move forward and that make sense and whatnot, that they're just going to be left behind every time. And that's what's been happening. So yeah, I'm going to throw my voice into the crowd. I think I think Gedo should be fired. I think Gedo needs to step down. I think President Hiroshi Tanahashi needs to turn things around, like Chad is pointing out. Because on top of that, we have to admit, right now, as far as President Tanahashi's tenure in the top spot in the company, I'm not super impressed. Where was the energy and the creativity and the great ideas that we had at the start of the year? Remember the start of this year? New Japan Pro Wrestling. Wrestle Kingdom was it's all right show. It was good. It's fine. And then we have the Wrestle Dynasty, which, of course, shined with Gabe Kidd. And then we have the New Beginning show, which was tremendous. Still one of my favorite shows of the year. Where is that energy? Where is that show? It's not like this has been 2 years ago. This was this year. And it all started off and we were excited. We were excited and pumped and we're saying, let's go. New Japan is back. But it's not back. It really didn't come back. Whatever Gedo did there, it was like, oh, oops. Sorry. This isn't where I wanted to go. Back on track, folks. back on track with some boring, uninspired, predictable wrestling. And it just sounds dire. And it is the worst. It doesn't give you any reasons to watch. And I don't feel any reasons to watch. Even though some of my favorite wrestlers right now work for that company, I am not interested. It feels like more and more of a chore to watch New Japan Pro Wrestling when there was a time where it was the complete opposite, where I couldn't get enough. And it's not because they don't have the talent. It's not because they don't have the guys. I think there's some changes at the top of creative that need to be done. I think Gato has run his course. Thank you, Gato. Clap, 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 clap. Retirement, please. And take your boys with you. And on that note, another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show comes to a close. Thank you all, everyone, so very much once again for stopping by, for listening. If you made it to the very end here, I appreciate it enormously. That's going to look good in the algorithms and whatnot. Do leave a like or a review or a rating as we go off. I will be back tomorrow, Thursday, for the AEW Dynamite review and more streaming goodness later on in the day. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you've subscribed. Hope you've followed. Whatever it is you do. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I'll see you next time.